So then we'll go ahead and move into our public hearing items. Item 4A is with regards to the San Bruno Recreation and Aquatic Center at 251 City Park Way. We will be reviewing an environmental impact report, or EIR, for the project pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA. The Planning Commission will consider certification of the final EIR, approval of the use permit and the architectural use permit. We will also review a request for an architectural review permit and use permit to demolish the existing Veterans Memorial Building and pool to construct a new 2-story, 49,360 square foot San Bruno Recreation and Aquatic Center pursuant to sections 12.108.010 and 12.96170.c.4 of the San Bruno Municipal Code. The City of San Bruno is the applicant and the owner. Staff report, please.
Yes, thank you so much. I will begin sharing my screen now. All right, and you can all see my screen and hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, wonderful. Good evening, Planning Commissioners. I'm Kelly Beggs, Contract Senior Planner for the City of San Bruno, and I'm pleased to present the item before you tonight, which, as Chair Lethen correctly said, includes a request for use permit, an architectural review permit, certification of a final EIR, adoption of the CEQA findings, and a mitigation monitor reporting program to allow for construction of a new recreation and aquatic center for the City of San Bruno. This slide shows what we'll be discussing this evening. I'll be turning it over to Joanne McGreeny, Community Services Director for the city, to review the project's background, and we'll then move into the existing conditions, the proposed project, and the environmental review. Daheen Meng with Group 4 Architecture will present the project's design, and then we will wrap up with tonight's action. So with that, I'll turn it over to Joanne McGreeny, Community Services Director.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm delighted to be a part of the presentation for this project with you all tonight. I'll be providing some background on how this project came to be. In 2013, consistent with the terms of the settlement agreement between the city and Pacific Gas and Electric Company in the amount of $70 million, the city established an independent, not-for-profit San Bruno Community Foundation to manage the restitution, settlement funds, and to oversee the use of the funds. In 2015, San Bruno Community Foundation sponsored a broad-based community listening campaign, which identified the community's highest priorities to be the replacement and or addition of new community facilities, including 1, a new library, 2, a recreation center, 3, a swimming pool to replace existing facilities, and 4, a new community center to support delivery and expansion of community programs and services, and to meet the community's needs for meeting and community gathering and event space. A subsequent facilitated community discussion process was conducted to identify which among the 4 community facilities discussed should proceed with design and construction as the community's highest priority for use of the $50 million allocated by the San Bruno Community Foundation. That process concluded in February of 2017 with the San Bruno City Council's approval of the Community Facility Prioritization Report, which identified replacement of the Recreation Center and Aquatic Center as one of the community's highest priorities. Community outreach was conducted during the project's schematic design phase to get community's feedback on the site design and materials. As you can see, approximately 1,788 members of the community provided feedback that is incorporated into the project that you will see tonight. This slide presents this year's meetings, which began in March with updates to the San Bruno Community Foundation and the City Council, continued with the project's Architectural Review Committee meeting, and culminate tonight with a Planning Commission meeting. Now I'll turn the presentation back over to Kelly Beggs, who will describe the existing conditions and the proposed project.
Thank you, Joanne. So this slide presents an aerial view of San Bruno City Park and its surroundings. As you can see, the park is surrounded by residential, institutional, and educational uses with Parkside Middle School, which is located over here. St. Robert's Catholic Church and Elementary School, located here to the north, and then the former El Cristal Elementary School to the south, which is proposed as a new private Stratford school. St. Andrew's Episcopal Church is also located to the south, a little bit further off of the slide here. The existing San Bruno City Park includes the Veterans Memorial Building, the San Bruno Park Pool, 3 baseball fields, tennis courts, multiple picnic areas and playgrounds, and 3 parking areas. The park is bisected by City Park Way, which you can see here, which then connects Crystal Springs Road to the north to DeSoto Way, which is south of the site. A channelized creek, Elzanjan Creek, runs through the park, and you've probably seen it running along City Park Way here, and then it moves into the parking area here. And then it moves into an underground culvert north of here. This slide shows photographs of the existing park and facilities. The bottom right photograph does show that existing alignment of City Parkway and Elzanjan Creek, with the creek running into the parking stalls, as you can see right here. Then the top 2 photographs are of the Veterans Memorial Building, which was constructed in 1955 and is approximately 30,700 square feet in size. The existing Veterans Memorial Building and pool would be demolished, and City Park Way and Elzanjan Creek would be realigned as part of the proposed project, which I will move in now. This slide shows the site plan, and as you can see, the parking along City Park Way would be separated into a dedicated lot, and then realigned. This City Parkway would be moved to the south at this portion, and then the creek would also be realigned to be out of the vehicle right of way, and to remove interference with those parking stalls and overall improve the safety of the site for pedestrians and for vehicles. The new proposed building footprint would be here. There's a public plaza located here. And then there's also a large lawn area that you'll see here. This area is proposed to be converted into an outdoor pool and a zero entry wading pool and splash pad in phase 2 of the project, but that is pending the availability of additional funding. And we have some more illustrations later in the presentation that'll show you what that would look like. So this slide shows the first floor plan. The main entry to the lobby and community lounge is located right here. An additional entry is located here. That entry would be used seasonally during camps and for special events, so most of the entry of the public would occur through this location. The major features of this floor include the indoor pool and the gymnasium. The indoor pool is adjacent to men's and women's locker rooms, among other storage and utility areas, as well as 2 family changing rooms and 2 party rooms here. You can see there are staff offices and a control desk located near that main entryway here, a gym with bleachers for spectators located here, and then 3 classrooms located here. These 2 medium classrooms would have a movable partition that would allow for conversion of this room into 1 large room. There are 2 stairwells and 2 elevators that lead up to the 2nd floor, located here and here, and I will move into that 2nd floor plan now. This slide depicts the 2nd floor plan, which includes an elevated walking track, fitness, cardio, and weights area, group exercise room, community hall, catering kitchen, and conference room. The community hall, similar to those classrooms on the 1st floor, does have a movable partition wall here that would allow the space to be either separated into 2 spaces or used as 1 larger space. It also opens onto an outdoor deck. And then lastly, there are some additional staff offices located here. This slide shows the project's overall tree planting and removal plan. I'll also move into some zoomed in versions, as I imagine this could be a bit difficult to see the detail. 52 heritage trees would be removed during construction of the proposed project, and 52 new trees would be planted. The proposed species consist of coast live oaks and sycamore trees, both of which are native species. And then just to note that almost half of the heritage trees that will be removed are eucalyptus trees, which are non-native trees that present fall risks and fire hazards. This slide shows the proposed tree planting around the parking area and adjacent to the creek, which you can see the lighter color here is the sycamore and the darker is the coast live oaks. This slide presents a section of the site to help you understand how the landscaping and the outdoor public areas will all work together. The main entry you can see is located here, and then it transitions into the community plaza. The community plaza is centered around a preserved coast live oak tree, which would be protected during construction. And then seat stairs lead up into the seasonal entry located here, which you can also see has been planned around preservation of a large redwood tree. Then past that area, there is the lawn area, which would be eventually converted into an outdoor pool area, which I'll show you in the next slide. So this is phase 2 of the project, and as you can see, there's an additional outdoor pool and a splash pad and zero entry pool located here. Now I'll move on to the project's environmental review. So an EIR was prepared pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act. The process began with a notice of preparation that was circulated to agencies and interested parties to help identify issues that the environmental report should focus on. After the scoping period, a draft EIR was prepared to analyze environmental impacts. The draft EIR was then released for public comment for a 45-day period. And following the close of that period, a response to comments documents was prepared to clarify and answer any comments and questions. Lastly, the final EIR was published on the project's website and sent to any commenters on May 8th of this year. I'll note that the final EIR consists of that draft EIR document and the response to comments document together. This slide shows a summary of all of the resource topics that are analyzed by the EIR. In this left box, these are all of the impacts that were deemed to be less than significant. And then in this gray box right here, these are all of the resource topics that the project would result in impacts that are less than significant with mitigation, meaning that mitigation measures would be implemented by the city to prevent environmental impact to these resource topics. Regarding transportation, I will note that we received a question from Commissioner Harmon regarding the project's use of level of service, also known as LOS analysis, as a threshold of significance rather than vehicle miles traveled, also referred to as VMT analysis. Cities are required to use VMT as the significance threshold, but that will start later on this year in July. As the project's transportation analysis was initiated over a year ago and approvals would be complete prior to July, the LOS analysis is appropriate for the project, but I also wanted to note that there is a brief VMT analysis in the response to comments document. Lastly, the project did have one significant and unavoidable impact due to demolition of the Veterans Memorial Building, which would result in a substantial adverse change on a historical resource. Mitigation measures that require the documentation of the Veterans Memorial Building prior to demolition would minimize this significant cultural resources impact, but there is no mitigation measure that could reduce the impact to less than significant. Lastly, regarding the environmental review, there are a number of resolutions which have a number of environmental documents attached today, so I did just want to go over what all of these things are. The final EIR, as I mentioned before, consists of the draft EIR and the response to comments document. The findings and statement of overriding considerations document presents written findings for identified significant impacts, accompanied by a brief explanation for the rationale for each of those findings. And the statement of overriding considerations is for significant and unavoidable impacts and just balance the project benefits against the significant unavoidable impacts. Then lastly, the mitigation monitoring reporting program specifies the implementation timeline, responsibility, and oversight of all of the mitigation measures. Now I'll move on to tonight's action. And so that includes adoption of 2 resolutions regarding the project's CEQA documents and permit approvals. I will revisit this slide, but first we'll do a brief presentation from the project architect on the project's design. I'll also note prior to the design presentation that the Architectural Review Committee did review this project in March and expressed support for the project's design and materials and recommended Planning Commission approval. So now I will hand it over to Daheen Meng. She's representing the Project Architect Group 4, and she will take us through the project design.
Thanks, Kelly. Do you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
As Joanne mentioned earlier in the presentation, we're working closely with the community and getting them engaged through the multiple rounds of outreach and surveys. The current design captures the design values which were prioritized by the community, which were stucco finish, natural stone, and wood. This is the view from the City Parkway. The first portion of the building that you're seeing up on the screen is the community hall. The first floor has classrooms and the community hall on the second floor. The large corner glazing on the second floor celebrates the view out to the park and transparency to the interior activities. There's a dedicated outdoor deck for the community hall. Also, as you can see here, the main entry is highlighted with the trellis. Next slide, please. This is the view from the park side. The building is articulated through 3 large volumes that corresponds to the major program spaces, which includes the community hall, gymnasium, and natatorium. The roof for the pavilions creates a nice rhythm that breaks down the building massing in response to the interior volumes. Also, the roof on the pavilions are angled. This allows daylight into the building, daylight into the interior spaces with clerestory windows, as well as to provide good solar orientation for the potential PV panels on the roof. Clerestory glazing takes advantage for the north light, allowing indirect natural light into the building without the glare in the active spaces such as the gym and in the indoor pool. Where there is a potential for glare, we're using fritted glass on the clerestory windows. There is a community plaza in front of the building, creating indoor-outdoor spaces, destination for the community, both formal and informal uses. Next slide. This is the view from the natatorium. The smaller massing in front of the natatorium is for the party rooms. The larger corner glazing provides the view connections to the park and daylighting. Indoor-outdoor connections are strengthened with a roll-up door at the natatorium. The pool and the party rooms have direct access out to the dedicated lawn space for informal use and programming. The next slide shows the exterior material palette summary. The color palette is based on the community's input and preference for the warm earth tones. We're using stucco finishes as the base in warm shades of greens and grays, and stone as accent materials. Next slide. Stone cladding is used at the vertical accent walls that anchors the building and enrich the facades. The woodlook finish trellis and the sunshades for the windows are used for easy maintenance and durability. Also, we're using fritted glazing on the clerestory. The building design has substantial amounts of glazing throughout to let the natural light into the building and take the advantage of the beautiful park that we're in and to connect indoor to the outdoor. That's all I have for the project design. I'll toss it over to Kelly for tonight's action.
One moment, just getting my video started again. So once again, thanks Daheen. I'm returning to tonight's requested action on this slide. And then we can move on to questions and discussion. Presentation is concluded and myself, staff, and the CEQA consultant, as well as the project architects are all available to answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly, and thank you, Daheen. That was a very helpful report. And I'd like to ask my fellow commissioners if they have any clarifying questions for staff.
I do have one.
Go ahead.
So in relation to the transition, obviously it is correct that the mandate from the state to transition to the VMT metric is not in force until, I believe it's July 1st of this year. My understanding is that, that passed in a law like in 2013 or 2014, and quite a few cities have already fully adopted it as their standard for reviewing environmental impacts, and level of service is still commonly used as a matter of sort of traffic analysis for a project, but is considered inappropriate as an environmental metric. I guess as long as we are now anything that we're going forwards, that we're working with a consultant, they're using the VMT. But I'm just a little puzzled as to whether it was that the city requested that LOS be used in this, or whether our consultant is just kind of a little slow to adapt. I did find it a little strange.
Yeah, so I think that I will actually hand that question over to Teresa Wallace, who is our CEQA consultant. You're correct in your notation of the date in which it's in effect. I think that you'll find that cities throughout the Bay Area are kind of in different phases of moving to VMT, but Teresa can probably speak to that phenomenon as she works with multiple jurisdictions.
Yes, that's true. Cities are taking varied approaches to VMT, but it is true that the metric of VMT is not required until July 1st. And so when this traffic study was initiated a year ago, the decision was to not utilize VMT as the metric and to use level of service. It's also true that level of service is no longer an impact under CEQA, but cities do have the discretion to analyze level of service and compare that to the safety impacts on the circulation system. And so, that's all that I really have to add. We did include a VMT analysis in the final EIR, and the determination was that the project would actually reduce VMT compared to existing conditions. So we didn't feel it was necessary to establish a specific threshold and continue on with a project-specific analysis in this case.
Thanks, Teresa.
Commissioner Harmon, do you have any further questions about that or any comments?
Nope. I'm satisfied that we will be, moving towards. Just from the environmental perspective, the sort of overriding concern is reducing vehicle miles traveled, and I think it's appropriate in terms of traffic and safety to now, look at the level of service through intersections. It was odd to find that where I think a lot of places have already adapted to the new environmental regs. But yeah, I'm fine with the answers.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other commissioners that have any clarifying questions for staff? Okay. Well, in that case, we'll go ahead and move into public comment. And as a reminder, each speaker has a 3-minute comment period. Tonight, because of our Zoom format, we will be taking public comments all at once, and then we will address them after public comment is finished. So for public comment, Melissa, are there any members of the public who have their hand raised that would like to speak on this item?
I see no hands raised.
Should we give them a minute?
We could, if any members of the public are out there, just so you are aware, we have 4 members of the public present. if you would like to speak on this item, please use the raise your hand feature. And I see no hands raised.
Through the chair, some people are not familiar with Zoom, and in some on some operating systems, you have to click the participants button first, and then the raise your hand button will appear. Just let people know that, just in case they're trying to raise their hand and cannot.
Yes, just for a quick summary, yeah, that is correct. On some systems, if you don't automatically see the raise your hand feature, what you can do if you have a mouse or if you're on a tablet, if you just tap on the screen, you should see a ribbon appear at the bottom of your screen, and one of the icons you should see is participants. It's an image of people. Click on that. A separate box should open that has your name listed, and at the bottom of that pop-up window, you should see raise your hand, or possibly a 3-dot symbol, and when you click on that, it would have raise your hand. There are still no hands raised, just FYI.
Okay, thank you for helping with that. Well, in that case, I suppose we'll need to do a roll call vote to close public comment.
For technical reasons, it's actually to close the public hearing.
Oh, close the public hearing. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
Thank you. All right. Shall we do a roll call vote to close the public hearing? I'll need a motion.
I will make a motion that we close public hearing.
Second.
Okay.
Chair Lethin,
Aye.
Vice Chair Biasotti,
Aye.
Commissioner Hamilton,
Aye.
Commissioner Harmon,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Commissioner Morgan.
Aye.
You have 6-0 votes.
Okay. Thank you very much. So then we will bring it back to the commission for commission discussion. Are there any commissioners who have any further questions or points of discussion?
No.
I suppose there aren't.
No.
Okay. Well, it's so exciting to have this come before us. I'm kind of surprised we're all quiet about it, but maybe we're just feeling like it's about time.
Well, through the chair,
Right.
I think that I believe that first of all, we've had several presentations. Many of us have served, if not all of us, in some form of ARC review or on the committee, and so we're really well informed. So I found myself, as I was reading this packet, that it was really understandable to me because of the rounds of times that it's come before the commission and myself, and so it's clear, and it's the presentation was thorough, and I am eagerly excited for the next steps.
Yeah, through the chair, echo everything that Commissioner Johnson had to say there. The building itself is beautiful. It's really well designed. It's going to be a wonderful addition to the park. This project is a long time coming, and I'm excited to support it tonight.
Thank you.
Through the chair, I agree with all that's been said. I think it's a beautiful building. It looks fantastic. It will be a great advantage to San Bruno. And I sincerely hope that we can get funding for the second phase, because I think that would be wonderful, and especially the paddling pool. I think the younger generation will go head over heels for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Morgan. Okay, well, I feel the same way. I'm delighted to see our community honored with a project like this, and it's going to be an incredible gift to our community. So thank you for everybody who's participated in bringing this to this point. So in that case, if our commission discussion is coming to a close, we'll go ahead and move into our actions. And I understand we have 2 resolutions that need to be addressed.
Can everyone see my screen? I'm just showing the action to us.
Can I move to adopt the CEQA findings of fact and statement of overriding considerations and mitigation monitoring and reporting program, and approving use permit 19020 and architectural review permit 2003 based on the required findings and subject to the attached conditions of approval.
Second?
I'll second
Oh,
that.
I'm sorry. I have to say all those in favor.
Okay, we'll do a roll call vote if staff could facilitate that, please.
Through the chair, this is a little different. We actually need to take two separate actions. The first one is to adopt a resolution to certify the final EIR. That would be your first motion.
Okay. So let's motion. I'll accept a motion for that.
I will so move.
Might I interrupt you? I'm so sorry. This is the city clerk, Melissa Thurman. I want to help make this easy on all of you. So I understand that we do have a motion and a second on the table for the adoption of the CEQA findings of fact, as well as the approval of the use permit 19-020 and all the language that comes with that. As Commissioner Harmon just greatly read out to all of us, I would actually say that you should complete that motion since it is on the table. And then we can do the adoption of the resolution certifying the final EIR as a separate motion after this one is finished. But we need to continue on with this motion as it was made. I believe there was a motion and a second by Commissioner Johnson, and we should do the roll call motion on that.
Got it. Thank you, Melissa. In that case, I will finish the motion by doing a roll call vote for that resolution that Commissioner Harmon just mentioned. Chair Lathin?
Aye.
Vice Chair Biasotti?
Aye.
Commissioner Hamilton?
Aye.
Commissioner Harmon?
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson?
Aye.
Commissioner Morgan?
Aye.
You have 6-0 vote.
Okay. Thank you.
Then shall I also move that we adopt the resolution certifying the final environmental impact report?
Yes, please.
Okay.
And I'll second.
Okay. Roll call vote, please.
Chair Lathin?
Aye.
Vice Chair Biasotti?
Aye.
Commissioner Hamilton?
Aye.
Commissioner Harmon?
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson?
Aye.
Commissioner Morgan?
Aye.
You have 6-0 vote.
Okay. Well, I'm pleased to say that it sounds as though we have adopted these resolutions, and it will now move forward to City Council from here, yes?
No, this is actually the final action for the
Oh,
project.
this is. Ah,
Okay.
Yay.
okay. Wow.
Should we clap?
Well, everybody.
I think if we were,
The next thing that happens is they actually build it.
Right.
good time.